So welcome to this extended video on Venus in Gemini. So in this video we're going to be looking at the main themes of Venus in Gemini between now and August, because Venus is going to spend a long time in this particular zodiac sign because she's going to retrograde from May sort of right through until the end of June. And I'm going to be doing a separate video on that, so look out for it. In the meantime though, you might enjoy the zodiac sign breakdown that I have prepared in this video, which looks at Venusian themes both in general and then also as it applies to each individual zodiac sign. So Venus obviously is mainly related to relationships, but it can also affect things like your creativity and money. So those are a couple of things that this particular transit might be sort of changing or asking you to work on. So something to bear in mind over this period. So I should just let you know that I have done a separate video on the pink supermoon, which includes some chart analysis as well as a breakdown per zodiac sign for the next 2 weeks. So you may want to catch that, you know, because it will dovetail with the information in here and help you to navigate through to the end of April. So in this reading, I'm also going to be giving you some tips for each zodiac sign on how to effectively leverage the energies surrounding relationships and Venus in Gemini. So, you know, if that's something that you're interested in, then you'll definitely want to watch this in connection with both my YouTube video where I looked at this in kind of summary format with using tarot cards and oracle cards. So all of these kind of work together to give you an in-depth understanding of the energies at play during Venus's transit through Gemini. So it's fair to say that from April onwards, Venus is going to be quite prominent. So even though this is Aries season, we've got a supermoon in Libra, so this is ruled by Venus. And then at that particular supermoon, we've got Venus prominent with her aspect to Mars and Chiron. And of course, we've got Venus transiting through Gemini. So lots of Venus themes at the moment prominent, and that will be the case right through until August, you know, because Venus is going to spend quite a long time in this particular sun sign or this particular zodiac sign. She's also going to go retrograde between May and June. I'm going to be doing a separate video on this, so look out for it. I do get into it a little bit in my sort of summary video, which I've put onto Instagram, TV and YouTube. So just have a look on my social media pages for links to those videos if you're interested. I've kind of gone into it a little bit with tarot cards and oracle cards. And then, so Venus in Gemini, what is this kind of, what are we talking about here? Well, essentially Venus is about values. So it's about values, it's about relationships, and it's about beauty, creativity, joy, pleasure, that kind of thing. So in Gemini, we are talking about an emphasis on communication and on kind of mental connections and mental concepts. So I think that, you know, that's the area where we're going to see the most sort of energy between people in this period. And of course, relationships are not just about romantic relationships, although Venus is really the planet par excellence of romantic ties, because the moon tends to be our kind of emotions and our family connections and our emotional dynamics, particularly subconscious dynamics, you know, overall with different kinds of people. But nonetheless, Venus is about what we value in other relationships. And I think, as I say, we're going to see quite a lot of emphasis on communication over the next few months, particularly when she comes to square Neptune, which could be a little bit of a tricky time. And I'm going to get into that in my video on Venus retrograde. So look out for it. You know, it'll be coming soon. It's worth just spending a minute to break down what Venus energy is likely to be like when it comes to, you know, its transit through Gemini. So let's start by saying that Gemini is a mutable air sign. Now, what does this mean? Well, the mutable aspect of it means that Venus will enjoy variety. She'll have a need for mental stimulation, and you know, mutable signs tend to be quite changeable and keep moving. They're quite adaptable, and so there can be a need to sort of be aware of the latest trends, for example in fashion, or to kind of to tap into fads. So meeting or socializing on Zoom, for example, is one of the current fads that's happening at the moment, with everybody in social isolation or in doing social distancing. So that's one way that we could be socializing during Venus in Gemini. Then the other aspect of this is the air element. So we are talking about Venus in a rather cerebral position. Air is all about communication and the intellect, and so the emphasis in relationships is going to also be on these two things. So I think what it's doing is it's talking about how at the moment, we may not be able to socialize or meet people in the flesh, as it were. We can't go to parties or meet people for dates in person. We are having to do everything online, and I think air is very it's a natural medium when it comes to things like technology. So I think this is really pointing to our romantic and social interactions happening predominantly online during this time. But it's also quite a light-hearted aspect. So I do think that things will be a little bit less kind of heavy than they were perhaps during Venus's transit through Taurus. It's less about kind of commitment and stability and reassurance, and more about having fun, just letting our hair down a little bit. Now, Gemini is interesting for a number of reasons. I'd say that keywords for Venus's transit through Gemini include things like choices, crosswords, and of course there's the dual aspect of the twins. So we could be talking here about twin flame dynamics. But it goes without saying that most romantic relationships are generally speaking between two people. So I think it's just sort of emphasizing this kind of coming together of two entities or people for the purposes of pleasure, joy, socializing, fun, that kind of thing. And of course love. So the downside of mutable air energy is that it can be a little bit fickle. So we are talking about flirtatious, light-hearted energy, nothing serious, and we are also talking about very cerebral energy that gets easily bored. So again, it might be that particularly during Venus retrograde and when she's squaring Neptune, that we could see the shadow side of behaviors that tend to crop up in relationships, such as ghosting and third-party situations, a lack of commitment, that kind of thing. So once again, as with the pink supermoon, we've also got to look at where Venus in Gemini will be, which area of your life it will be transiting during this time. And again, I recommend that you have a look at the sign for your rising sign here, because then Venus will be in the correct position when it comes to life areas in your chart. So in a nutshell, Venus in Gemini is about values. It's about communicating your values. It's about thinking about your values, assessing, so making personal choices. And as I said in my previous video, I think that Venus in Gemini is very much about making choices, because of course the twins are, Gemini is about the twins, so it's about choosing between two, a kind of fork in the road. So it could be at this time that people are having to make choices, or they are looking to to communicate in a different way, and this will tell you in which area of your life it's likely to be. So for Aries, this is more than likely going to be with neighbors, close relatives, and people that you encounter in your everyday life. So whether it's somebody that you see on your everyday commute, whether it's your local car salesman, your postie, or whether it's your brother or sister, or just your neighbor. Perhaps you've had sort of like fractious relationships with your neighbors in the past. This is a time to really think about how to improve relations with those people in your immediate environment, or simply to make choices. Are you having to think about changing your mode of transport, for example, like upgrading to something electric, for example, or is it that your written communications style needs to change so that you're more persuasive and maybe sound a bit more positive? Those are some of the things to think about going forward. So then for Taurus, it's likely that you are thinking about making some choices when it comes to money, how you earn your money, or perhaps communicating about your your skills, your worth in a different way. So it could be that you either need to sort of ask for a raise at this time because other forms of income have dried up, or you may be looking to attract new sources of work, or just having to make some choices when it comes to the type of work that you do between now and August, because obviously the financial landscape is changing quite dramatically, and we are in uncharted territory. So it would be unsurprising that you might be doing a little bit of financial consolidation and looking at value at this time. And then for Gemini, having Venus here is obviously going to really enhance your already very skillful, persuasive abilities. And Gemini is also a dual sign, so again it emphasizes this idea of two, or having to choose between two. And so it's possible at this time that you may have to make a decision about between two things, or between two people, for example, or you may decide to take your life in a completely new direction, and you're having to sort of work out which brings you more joy, what you really value when it comes to lifestyle, that type of thing. So that those are likely to be your focus over the next couple of months. Then for Cancer, I think this is really about allaying fears, about unseen threats. It's quite natural to be having fears, for example, around family members. Is everybody going to be safe? That's a big concern for Cancer. And I think Venus and Gemini can help to sort of brighten and lift the mood. So maybe you are trying to think of ways of reworking things in your own mind, so that you don't kind of go immediately to kind of catastrophe thinking, fears, that kind of thing, and flip it into a more positive, light-hearted way. And then for Leo, Venus and Gemini is really going to enhance your friendships and your social interactions with others on a kind of collective level. So again, I think that spending time online or in sort of groups, online groups and that kind of thing, is going to bring you enormous joy, and might lead you to potential love interest, perhaps somebody that you meet and as a friend or through friends you could end up having great chemistry with. And Venus here could indicate also more than one love interest kind of arising from this domain. So lots to look forward to between now and August. Then for Virgo, here we're talking about life goals, career direction, what you feel called to do, your standing in public or positions of authority. So it may be that you are having to consider making choices between your priorities, what's deemed more important, making some difficult calls, but more than likely this is going to enhance your public profile, make you more kind of attractive or magnetic in the eyes of others. So whatever you do now to help, I think, is really going to bring you joy, and it's going to perhaps help you to see your true vocation as opposed to your career. Kind of by the time we leave this crisis behind us towards the end of August or beginning of August. And then for Libra, Venus will be traveling through your 9th house of beliefs, philosophy, higher learning, publishing, the arts, and foreign connections. So it's possible here that you could be making contact with people from overseas, perhaps using technology, and you could also be getting a lot of comfort and joy and solace from listening to various spiritual teachers at this time. It's also possible that you might be disseminating, you might be doing spiritual work yourself and getting a lot of satisfaction and joy from it, or you might be getting feedback that others are getting a lot of value from what you do, which is great to hear when you are kind of in that particular field. Venus in this position might prompt you into having to make some important choices. These might be of a kind of spiritual or philosophical nature, in terms of your beliefs and so on, or it could simply be that you are offered some publishing opportunities and having to sort of choose between different bidders, or people who want to perhaps publish your work. Then for Scorpio, Venus will be traveling through your 8th house of joint projects, resources, sex, death, and taxes. So although Venus in Gemini is quite light-hearted, it can also get you into a little bit of trouble now. So I think be on your guard against courting scandal of any kind, no kind of illicit affairs, or trying to dodge paying your tax now, because I think it could end up, potentially causing a few problems, forcing you to make some choices further down the line. But on the whole, Venus is a positive aspect. So I think here it's about injecting a little bit of humor and sort of lightheartedness into what can sometimes be difficult subjects, taboo subjects to talk about, from death to sex to taxes to intimacy and trust. And you might find that that by doing so, it makes it easier to kind of have difficult conversations where they need to be kind of had. And then for Sagittarius, Venus will be in your 7th house of committed relationships. So it's very possible, Sagittarius, that you might find yourself torn between two different love interests, of who you want to kind of commit to more deeply by the end of Venus's transit through Gemini. Or it could simply be that you are seeking more joy from your one-to-one relationships, and through light-hearted dialogue with others that you are able to get these needs met. Then for Capricorn, Venus will be traversing through your 6th house of everyday life, work, schedules, health, pets, and that kind of thing. So it's possible that you just need to find ways to make your life a little bit more interesting and exciting. It can be a little bit humdrum when we're kind of in lockdown. There isn't very much we can do in terms of variety of activities, and I think it's important to try and inject some form of fun, lightheartedness, playfulness into your day, so that it doesn't just become one big kind of hamster wheel of chores and boring kind of to-do lists. And then for Aquarius, this Venus will be traversing your 5th house of love interests and sex, children, as well as creativity and pleasure. So here Venus is the queen of pleasure, and she will be traversing through your 5th house. So I think the emphasis here is getting pleasure and joy from spending time with children, also getting a lot of emotional satisfaction from creative projects, for example, perhaps working on that hobby that you've been putting off because you've been so busy. Or you could be getting yourself out there and chatting to people online. There's certainly that possibility. And again, here with the dual aspect of Venus and Gemini, it's possible that you will be quite magnetic when it comes to dating. So you might have a few options by the end of this period to kind of choose from. And then for Pisces, Venus will be traversing your 4th house, which is about family, home, security, and that kind of thing. So here Venus is adding a little bit more fun and lightheartedness to family connections. So it could mean that you actually find that spending time with family turns out to be quite fun, something that you never thought possible if you have a difficult family dynamics. It could also be that you concertedly make the effort to create and cultivate more joy when it comes to being at home. So finding ways to really bring joy into your life during lockdown or social distancing. So those are just some of the themes. You might want to pause and read through some of the keywords that I've got for each zodiac sign to see if they prompt you into a few other ideas. We've got a lot of time for these themes to develop. And also what we need to bear in mind is the aspects that are involved between Venus and Mars, as those will also add another filter, another kind of layer to what Venus is doing in Gemini. So I hope this has been helpful. I didn't want to make it too long, so I'm going to do a separate video on Venus retrograde, which will start kind of mid-May, and look there at particularly at relationship dynamics in more detail. But if you want a summary or kind of a taste of what I'm going to be talking about, then have a look at my Pink Supermoon and Venus Ingress video on IGTV and YouTube, because I get into these topics kind of briefly using oracle cards and tarot cards. I also just want to draw your attention to my special offer for members of my website, which will be running from Easter right through until the new moon at the end of April, so around about the 22nd, 23rd of April. So I'm going to be offering between 33% and 50% off on reports and readings. So if you're interested in taking advantage of that offer, do go to the members section of my website, and you'll find the link to the special offers page, which has got the discounted amounts already entered into them. Right. Thanks so much for listening and for watching, and I'll catch you again soon, I hope.